Hi crafters, it's Marianne from MA Designs. Welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for joining me today. Today I'm going to make a Mother's Day card. It's Mother's Day all over the world. It's been Mother's Day in the UK earlier in the year and coming up to Mother's Day in the US and Spain and Portugal, I believe, in early May. So you might need some inspiration. I'm just at the beginning of the video just going to show you how I find inspiration for what to do when you buy a new stamp and you come to use it for the first time. Now, I've had this pretty Petals Be Bold stamp set from Simon Says Stamp. I've had it for quite a long time, but this is the first time I'm actually using it. So just to refresh my memory, I'm going back to the Simon Says Stamp website and bringing up the product page for this stamp and die set. And you see there at the bottom, you've got all of the gallery of images that have been made by design team people and people who work with the company, people who have blogs, etc. So I like this clean and simple design here. So I'll click the link and it's taken me to this blog page, which is I'm in Haven. I've since followed this lady on Instagram as well. It's a lady called Lisa, and she makes absolutely beautiful cards, and I would never have found her except through that link on Simon Says Stamp. So that is a top tip. If ever you're just in a bit of a funk, go back to the website where you bought the product from and just see if they've got design team makes or a gallery even of customer makes, because quite a lot of them do just add those onto their website. So I found this idea. I'm going to make it, I intend to make it fully in my own colours. You'll see the end result actually ends up being really close to Lisa's card, colour wise, but I make it a different size, so it does end up looking different, and she uses a layer whereas mine's completely flat. But yeah, heavily influenced by her design. It's absolutely gorgeous. So I start off thinking I'm going to use 3 colours from my Distress Ink collection. So regular Distress Ink, which is dye based and therefore translucent. And these different layers of these petals overlap each other slightly. So you can see there I've stamped the pink, I've used picked raspberry. And now I'm using a yellow. I've chosen Squeezed Lemonade. And I'm thinking where that yellow overlaps with that pink, you'll get a slightly orangey, peachy tone where those 2 colours overlap. However, picked raspberry was probably a little bit too intense to go with Squeezed Lemonade. Squeezed Lemonade, maybe I could have switched it out and used mustard seed if I was going bold. Or I could have chosen a paler pink, but I couldn't find one immediately to hand. There was one lipstick, but that wasn't quite the tone I was looking for. And I've used here Salty Ocean, which when I'm ink blending, this combo is absolutely fantastic. These blend nicely, but obviously you can go with a lighter hand or a heavier hand as you wish when you're ink blending. When you're stamping, I've had to stamp twice a couple of times to get a clear stamped image. So it's made the ink a little bit too intense, so you're not really seeing that blend where they're overlapping. You can see through them-ish, but it doesn't turn out quite like I wanted. Maybe I could have switched out Salty Ocean for something paler, perhaps Tumbled Glass might have worked. But anyway, it's not awful, but it's not what I was going for. So I'm going to put those inks aside. I've got this half sheet of A5 paper and I was going to do quite a few of these flower heads, but I'm not doing them all the same because I'm not happy with that one. So I've got these ink cube sets from Altnew. So I've got a little set of the orange ones here. I've got 4. It goes from Sunray, which is the yellow, through, I can't remember what that second one is, but then Snapdragon and Marigold, so through to a darker orange. So they're tone on tone. And then I've got a pink set as well, with things like Puffy heart in there. So I'm gonna just try those and just see how I get on. So I'm putting that darker orange, the Marigold colour, in the middle. I feel like flowers tend to be darker in the middle, or there seems to be more shadow where the petals are closer together. Not that you have to go at all realistic, especially with a stamp set like this that's kind of whimsical and that hand-drawn effect to it. It's not a realistic stamp at all, so you can do what you want ultimately. But yeah, I feel like these colours there's a more subtle difference between these colours. They match easier. So I'm just trying that. So this is Snapdragon. I absolutely love this colour, Snapdragon. It's just the right shade of orange. And then I want a little bit of a palish pink in the middle. So I don't go for the picked raspberry in the distress. I feel like that'll be too much. So I've chosen this Puffy Heart. What I'm finding with the distress, with the Altnew inks, sorry, is that the labels seem paler than the actual ink, especially if you have to stamp it twice. So you'll see here, it goes on there, it looks nice and pale, just like the label. And then you stamp it down, and actually it's quite a deep pink coming up there. So I still have to stamp it twice to try and get an even colour. So I've gone for the slightly paler, the palest pink out of the set, which I think is Pink Diamond. I can't remember exactly. I'll put the full names in the description box below anyway. So you see there, that is much nicer. That not nicer, but more in line with the card that I've got the inspiration from. So the one that's in my mind, the one that's more suitable for a Mother's Day. And then here, I stamp with the stamp upside down. What an idiot. So we'll move on from that blob and just start again. So no drama, it's just a bit of paper. I feel like a Wally, but never mind. So I'll just move on and do another flower in similar colours, but a slightly different combination. Switching up the orange, using a bit more yellow. I've brought back in the squeezed lemonade from the Distress inks. And yeah, just working my way through different pinks, different oranges, until I find one that really appeals to me. So that you see there, that's come through a little bit too dark, but as long as you match it with this layer that goes underneath, you can kind of bring it all together. So I'm putting another pink layer here, and that's the paler pink, so it's gone kind of orangey where it's overlapped with the yellow, but the second layer brings it back, so that's a bit more pink. And then yeah, I just keep going. I just roughly fill up this sheet. I'm trying to leave enough space around them because I do have the dies as well, and the dies will leave that slight white outline, so I don't want to, you know, put them right up against each other and cause myself difficulties later on. I think this is the one that I end up using, actually, this with this paler shade of pink in it. I think, yeah, I really like how that one's turned out. But as they're all drying back, they're all kind of evening out. I've stamped on the outlines, I've stamped a few leaves and a couple of the sentiments. Specifically, I wanted that Mother's Day sentiment. That's why I actually picked out this stamp set in the first place, because I linked it. I had it saved in my craft storage app, which is CML, Colour My Life. And I add a tag for each of the sentiments that come in a stamp set. So I'll store this stamp set with all my other floral stamp sets, but then the sentiment can kind of get lost. So I've put a tag in the app saying Happy Mother's Day. And so when I search for Mother's Day, this stamp set comes up. Out of all of the stamps I own, it brings me to this one. So it's a really handy app. So I've just used the matching dies, and I've gone through and die cut all of those. Obviously this one here for the big flower head, there's only the one die, so you have to keep repeating that. I'll just keep whizzing that through the die cut machine. I've got my sentiments there. I've managed to get these lined up quite well. They're really well made dies. That the stem on the big leaf didn't work, but I think I had the stamp twisted because it's such a thin stamp. I think I'd had it the wrong angle. But so what I'm doing now is I'm going to stamp directly onto the card blank, which is very brave of me. I'm not even using my stamping platform, so if this goes wrong, it'll stay wrong. So luckily that went really well. That's using the Memento Tuxedo Black ink, which is it was just really handy. It's just a nice crisp black ink for the fine outlines, so that's just the one I used. But you could use any, as long as you let it dry before you start adding different mediums over the top, it'll be fine. And then I'm just colouring these leaves in using the little stamp, and this is Shabby Shutter's Distress ink, which is a nice sort of a grungy olivey sort of shade of green. You can see there it's quite a bit darker than the label. I've had these a really long time. That label may have faded. I'm not sure, but anyway, it's turned out a nice sort of leafy colour, and those blotchy bits will kind of dry back as it soaks into the card. So yeah, so I'm quite happy with that. So the big stem is stamped directly onto the card. I've got the smaller stem with the smaller leaves here. I'm just going to put some Nuvo glue on that piece and just set it aside to go tacky, and then it won't sort of splurge out as much when I place it down. And then I've got foam squares on the back of the flower heads and the sentiment. So I'll just peel all of these backers off, give it a slight bend so it's got a slight dome sort of shape to it, and then press that down. And then I've got the second flower here and the pre-glued smaller stem. So I just want to make sure that I line these up so that there's room for the flower head, but I don't want it tilting over too much. So, and again, just give that a little bit of a bend and press that down. And then I'll just nestle the sentiment in just underneath. So you can see there it's cut with a really neat outline, which is really nice. I love that font as well, with the sort of blocky happy and then the swirly Mother's Day. I think that, yeah, it's a really nice little mixed font, subtly a mixed font stamp. I think, yeah, this is for my partner's mum. But yeah, I think she'll really like that. It's a very sort of classic kind of clean card. So I'll show you some close-ups of the card. And that's us done for today. A nice quick little card. However, please subscribe, because one day I may just post the bloopers reel, which is the full hour of this session. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye.